I'm going to cover 22 lenses that you can find used for less than $100. There's one for at least every type of photography, but that's not all. I'm also going to include 2 Pancake lenses that are perfect for travel, street, or just daily use, though those are going to cost you a little more than $100. All of these options are why Micro Four Thirds is my favorite system and why I think it offers such a great value. Before I start, a quick note on 4/3 lenses. They were designed for DSLRs like the Olympus E5 from 2010. It's now collectible, selling for almost $500, and at this point I wonder if they're going to start going up in price. Regardless, if you want to use the lenses, you're going to need an adapter. I would suggest getting one with electronic contacts so autofocus will work. Additionally, you're going to want to make sure that your camera has phase detect autofocus. A lot of the older bodies have contrast detect autofocus, and if you have one of those, the autofocus is going to be very, very slow. The 25mm f1.7 is the cheapest Panasonic prime. It's my favorite field of view with a nice fast aperture, though the real advantage is going to be the autofocus speed. It probably has the fastest autofocus speed of any lens that I am going to cover. Image quality is very good, especially at this price. I've looked for one from time to time, but I got sidetracked by a Canon 5D Mark II. There are incredible deals out there. The lens has been popular and sold well since being released in 2015. You shouldn't have an issue finding one, but I'm not sure how much longer they'll be found for under $100. The 12 to 32mm f3.5 to 5.6 is incredibly small with an official weight of only 70 grams. Compared to the Nikon 1 11 to 27.5, which is 80, and the Pentax Q 5 to 15, which is 96 grams. So it's the lightest zoom that I know of, which is even more impressive because both of those lenses are for smaller sensors. I had one for a short time with a Panasonic GF7. I didn't like that camera because the controls were too small and cramped for me. I do think it's an attractive lens for travel or when you want to be discreet on the street. You're going to have to hunt for a deal to get it under $100, though they're still being included as a kit lens with the G100. Be brand loyal with the Panasonic 14 to 45 f3.5 to 5.6 Mega OIS, which is Panasonic's name for optical image stabilization, and that's going to work best on a Panasonic body. It was a kit lens for a bunch of the early cameras. That means that they are easy to find, and I don't think that there is a less expensive Panasonic lens. It's an incredible value that doesn't have much room left to depreciate. I'd say it's tied with the Olympus 14 to 42 for the best value of the lenses I will cover. If you're on a budget and need to breathe new life into your Panasonic body, this is the answer. The Panasonic 14 to 42 was the kit lens for the G7 and other cameras. I used it to shoot some of my old videos. The G7 is one of my favorite cameras in part because of this lens. I like it more than the kit 18 to 55s you'd find with a Nikon or Canon. The mount is plastic, so don't be too rough with it. I didn't travel with it, so that wasn't a concern for me. The close focusing distance is 20 centimeters, which allows you to be within arm's reach of a tabletop. The PZ in the Panasonic PZ 14 to 42 f3.5 to 5.6 stands for power zoom. I'm not a fan. I can understand focus by wire, but power zooms are too slow for me. And I don't want the focal length to change when I turn off the camera. The lens extending when the camera is turned on adds to the start time. If you want the power zoom, you're going to have to hunt to find one for less than $100. I've been having trouble filtering out the non-power zoom lenses. Just keep looking and the deals you find will improve. The Panasonic 45-150 f4-5.6 is an inexpensive entry into sports, action, and wildlife photography. How's the image quality? Well, it weighs 200 grams. The next step up is the Panasonic 100-300, that's $400 and weighs 520 grams. That's heavy enough to get annoying to take it on casual walks or hikes. On the other hand, the 45-150 is a great way to casually try wildlife or sports photography because it's so easy to always have on you. If you're only going to have 15 to 30 minutes, this is the lens you're going to want. Even though Panasonic is still selling them, avoid buying new. It's easy to find barely used copies all over the place. Save the money because if you get lots of use out of the lens, you'll want to upgrade at some point. Forget a camera bag, the Panasonic 14mm f2.5 weighs 68 grams and fits in almost any pocket. It's one of the lenses that hooked me on Micro Four Thirds. On a small body, it's going to be comparable in size to a lot of the premium compacts out there. That makes it perfect for street travel and daily carry. I think it makes a lot of sense in a 2-lens kit. You'd have it with a pro zoom or a different prime and then switch it out when you wanted something smaller. It's not easily found for under $100. You can try looking for the PowerEye version, which is just the lens rebranded. Image quality is good compared to other lenses I'm covering. For what it is, I think it's an excellent value, and I'm not looking to sell mine anytime soon. I'm not sure if there's a first version of the Olympus 14-42 f3.5-5.6 II R MSC. That stands for Movie and Stills Compatible. I guess there was just any ideas to stick more acronyms on the barrel of a lens. Just like the Panasonic, I prefer this to an 18-55. I generally prefer primes because they are lighter and faster than zooms, but it doesn't really matter with Micro Four Thirds because of how light all the lenses are. The image quality is perfectly acceptable for my needs. You will need to be nice to it because the mount is made of plastic. Even so, it's the cheap zoom I would recommend for any Olympus or OM system body. They are one of the most common Micro Four Thirds lenses. You'll be easily rewarded if you hunt for a deal. There's also the ED 14-42 f3.5-5.6 EZ. The EZ stands for electronic zoom, which I'm not a fan of. I think they're slow and break easily. Who hasn't had a compact camera open in a bag, destroying the lens? They're going to be a challenge to find under $100. I wanted to include it because I know some people prefer power zooms or need them for accessibility. I'm pretty sure they were a kit lens option at some point. I currently have an Olympus 40-150 f4-5.6 R ED MSC. It has a plastic mount and feels kind of cheap, but I bought it used. At 208 grams, it's perfect for the few times that I want a telephoto zoom. It's perfect for the distances you'd expect to find at kids' sports or events. If you want to try sports or birds, it will be good enough that you'll be able to make a decision if you want to continue and look to upgrade. For around $300, you can get an Olympus 75-300 that weighs 430 grams. Seeing as the 40-150 is a second kit lens, I would never recommend buying one new. Most of them have barely been used. If it breaks, just buy another one and you'll come out ahead versus buying new. Is one of 2 Bodycap lenses. It's still being sold by OM System with updated branding. I had one for a couple weeks. I can see the appeal and I think most people would have fun using one a couple of times. I thought the image quality was on par with a toy lens. My problem with the lens is that the wide-angle lens on my phone has the same field of view, so even though the lens only weighs 30 grams, that didn't stop it from getting brown boxed. There's nothing that can go wrong with them, so buy used. They can be found in black, silver, and white. Those match colors on EPL series bodies, which are a perfect match for the lens. I don't think I would buy another. I prefer the 7 Artisan 7.5mm fisheye that's coming up. The Olympus 15mm f8 is the other Bodycap lens. Unfortunately, there is a bunch of Pancake lenses to choose from, and if it came down to it, I think I would rather have the Panasonic 14mm or the 12-32 zoom. And then there's also the Olympus 17mm that I'm about to talk about. So while it does have better image quality than the 9mm, the Pancake options have better image quality than it, and they're not much heavier. The 3-element optical design is going to be similar to what's found in toy and disposable film cameras. In addition to black, silver, and white, there are red versions of the lens. Not wanting to be left out of the Pancake competition, Olympus came up with the 17mm f2.8. I don't think they're going to be found for under $100, but I wanted to include it because it's another great travel option that only weighs 71 grams. I would be interested if I didn't have the Panasonic 14 2.5 and 20 1.7. It has excellent image quality, great color, and no distortion. The aperture is fast enough to get subject separation from the background. Notoriously bad autofocus speed is the one flaw of the lens, though I can't think of a Pancake lens where I have been impressed with the speed of the autofocus. If you're unaware, my favorite flash company, Yongnuo, has released 2 micro four thirds cameras. They make 4 lenses, with the Yongnuo 42.5mm f1.7 being the only one that can be found under $100. I wonder how similar it is to the Panasonic 42.5. The 25 f1.7 is just over $100. Then there is a 17mm f1.7 and a zoom, the 12-35 f2.824. I can see the appeal. It'd make a great inexpensive portrait kit with any of the older bodies. I have an Olympus 45 f1.8, so it's not on my list of lenses to try. Lensbaby has been making creative lenses since 2004. That predates many of the third-party manufacturers. The Composer has the best availability of any micro four thirds lenses. Pay close attention to what optics are included because they can be swapped out. Some people are selling the Composer body without a lens, while others are selling kits with a ton of accessories and extra lenses. Try to find a deal on a bundle with lots of extras because they'll be less expensive to buy that way. I have a Lensbaby 3G with all kinds of fun extras for the Canon EF mount. The lens doesn't have any electronics, so a cheap adapter doubles the fun. It's a fun gimmick, but I wouldn't recommend getting it unless you can also get the aux lenses. There is a wide and telephoto, so you get 3 different looks out of the lens. There are also 37mm macro adapters. They are easy to find separately. 7 Artisans makes a variety of manual focus lenses for APS-C mounts that get micro four thirds versions. The 7 Artisans 7.5mm f2.8 fisheye is fun because of how close it can focus. The clickless aperture makes it usable for video. The image quality is better than the Olympus 9mm Bodycap lens, but I'm not a fan of carrying it around because it weighs 292 grams. And while the build quality isn't the best, I can forgive that because I only paid $62.23 for mine. They are easy to find along with several other lenses that 7 Artisans makes. Prices are good, and I've been happy enough with the 7.5mm fisheye to want to try another of their lenses. You can find both versions of the 18mm f6.3 Bodycap lens for under $100. The second version looks like it cleaned itself up and got a corporate job. If you're lucky, you might be able to find a deal on the 4mm f2.8 circular fisheye. I'd be interested in the 25mm f1.8 because it's my favorite field of view, so you can't go wrong with it. There's also the 60mm f2.8 macro that I would be interested in seeing compared to my vintage Panasonic 55mm f2.8. Samyang markets their lenses as Rokinon in the US. I believe there are other brand names used, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. There are a trio of lenses that can be found: a 7.5mm f3.5 fisheye, the 12mm f2 and 16mm f2 high-speed wide-angle lenses are heavy. The 12mm is 255 grams, while the 16 is 610 grams. That's way too heavy for me. I would not like carrying that lens around. Patience is going to be required to get any of these under $100. When they do show up, people tend to buy them quickly. Also be careful because they are sold in other lens mounts, and there are more of them out there for Sony, Canon, and Nikon. The SLR Magic 8mm f4 ultra wide angle is targeted at gimbal and drone use. It's 110 grams and has a focus lock. The other lever is to assist focusing. The aperture is clickless, which is great for video, but there is some barrel distortion. I wasn't crazy about the test photos I saw, but it's still impressive because the Panasonic 9mm and 7:14 zoom both cost around $400. Some great deals show up, and there are a surprising number of third-party ultra wides. If I was looking for one, I'd make a list of a few that were acceptable and make my decision based on when a deal showed up. The Laowa 17mm f1.8 is another fast standard lens option. When I hear Laowa, I'm first concerned that I'm not saying it right, and then I think of all the crazy macro lenses they've made. Image quality is good, but there are sharper lenses out there. I wouldn't want to pay full price for one, but as long as you're patient, a used copy will eventually show up. If you don't feel like you own enough cameras, I'm going to be price checking Panasonic, Olympus, and OM system bodies. So that'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't.